Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with another hot take. Welcome back. I know I didn't do any hot takes yesterday. I needed to get away from the news cycle for a bit and get out of my head and kind of try to forget about the virus. I actually had a really productive day yesterday because I did that. But it's back in the news, so let's go through it. Number one, wanted to just remind everybody, I'm sure you've heard this, but in case you haven't, ibuprofen is not what you should be taking if you have the coronavirus. I'm hearing report after report from people who are nurses, people who know nurses, and I've seen stuff on the internet. Ibuprofen apparently aggravates coronavirus. Don't take it. If you have it, take Tylenol instead. Tylenol-based products are what you want to take. So if you bought uh, ibuprofen products, you're just going to have to not use those because apparently it makes coronavirus worse. So make a mental note of that. And if you can, get out and get yourself a nice big bottle of Tylenol and maybe some Tylenol-based products. That may eliminate a few of the things I bought as backup. So what are you going to do? We're learning things as we go. Next thing up, New Jersey. We were at 178 cases yesterday. I believe we're at something like 267 today. They're testing and more people have it. There was a woman who tested positive, gave a false name, and disappeared from the hospital. She apparently was later found and located and talked into coming back to the hospital. But it just goes to show you how crazy this is. I mean, some people are just going to ignore the quarantine. They're just going to ignore it. And again, keep in mind, 2-week incubation period. Some people, most people will show no signs of it for those 2 weeks or so, or one to almost 4 weeks, really. You'll show absolutely no signs, and then on the last day, you'll get a fever and feel like you're going to die, basically. And then you're going to be sick probably for another 2 weeks on top of that. So this is really like a 1-month cycle. It's like 2 weeks of like spreading the disease to everybody, and then 2 weeks of sheer hell. And if you're really unlikely, a hospital. If you're really, 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 really old, you could die. Or if you have underlying medical conditions. Now, this has led millennials, and I think, although I think the reports are a bit exaggerated, but people on, young kids on the news saying, "Oh, I'm going to spring break anyway," blah blah blah, and the coronavirus challenge of licking a toilet seat in the middle of the coronavirus. These are all terrible. Really, just stop, or at this point, I mean, wasn't the tide pool challenge enough? I think it's time to stop and grow up, and you can really spread this disease to older people who really, my parents are in their late 70s now. And I'm very worried about them. I got them to finally stop going out. They're quite the social butterflies, and and finally they're staying home, and as of at least a week ago, and so far they're fine. I'm fine, but it's worrisome. It's very worrisome. This is a very contagious virus, and we're still months away from any kind of usable vaccine. They're trying to fast track it. Might have one by June. I heard a rumor today, but I think that's very soon. Very soon. I'm not sure how they could fast track it that fast and for it to be safe and effective. It might be effective, at least initially, but it might not be safe. It could always make it worse. No good news on the coronavirus front. It's just spreading and spreading and spreading. So if you have not gotten your supplies, I don't know what to tell you at this point. Amazon's cutting back, so that may not be an avenue to get your supplies anymore. Um, Again, I had to make a run to a store. I picked a drugstore that was kind of out of the way because I wanted to get some Tylenol, and they had some food there. You know, drugstores have like a limited amount of food, so I just tore in and grabbed a few extra things and my Tylenol and got the hell out of there. Wore my face mask, washed my hands, and did a whole wipe down sesh. I'm in total containment mode. So, I mean, treat it seriously. And you got to understand that they just took these pretty draconian steps and, by American standards in New Jersey of basically setting a curfew, although it's not going to be enforced, asking restaurants and businesses to close. Certain businesses are closing. And, I hear from friends there in other states that people are still going to the damn movies. I mean, I'm just like in shock that these people haven't gotten the word. And what you have to understand, that you have to be 2 weeks ahead of the curve. I started wearing my face mask, weeks ahead of time. And people started laughing at me. And I started to accumulate extra foodstuffs weeks ahead of time. People were like, "You're crazy. It's not going to be that bad." I go, "Well, if it's not going to be that bad, then I'm just, I'll just eat this food later. And it's my right to wear a face mask or whatever." So the measures that were taken by New Jersey, you're not going to see any results for 2 weeks. In fact, it'll appear that things are getting worse, and they will, because now we have the testing kits, and they're testing more and more. So the amount of cases they have will spike, all over the country. Now that testing is going to be more widespread, it's just going to spike up and up and up and up. So in New Jersey, we're at like around, I think it was 267. We should be at 1,000 by probably the end of the weekend. I would guess. I think it's doubling every 2 days. So by tomorrow, we should be close to 500. And yeah, so by the end of the weekend, probably 1,000 or more. And then by the end of next week, tens of thousands, probably 30, 40,000 people. And in Italy, it'll just be, who knows? I mean, they locked down the whole country, so maybe that'll finally put a crimp in it. But it may be too late. I mean, it's that 2 weeks. You could spread a lot. One person could spread it to hundreds of people if they're in the wrong job, where they interact with people every day. A clerk in a store, in a really busy sort of mini mart, talks to people, interacts with people all day long. You're talking hundreds of people. That stewardess in LA. So some models are saying 45 days for this to peak, which puts us at probably the end of April, beginning of May. That's about when we'll probably run out of hospital beds in the United States. And it's just going to be bad. It's just going to be really bad. So do not go out. Do not go out. Don't go anywhere. And if you do full containment mode. You got to wash everything, wipe off everything. You have to assume everything you come into contact with is contaminated, big time. And anything, I think the virus can stay on surfaces up to 12 hours. It might even be longer on fabrics. I'm not even sure. So, if you go out to a bunch of places, I don't know why you would, but if you're in contact with a lot of different people and places, even if you're got a mask on and rubber gloves and a whole deal, when you come home, strip down, put all the clothes in the washing machine, grab a shower, because that's the safest thing to do. So the big news coming out of the Trump administration, besides this, is its response. And the big news is the media is actually starting to praise Trump for his response. They're actually starting to realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't criticize Trump relentlessly 24/7, especially during a crisis. So they finally backed off on him and actually gave him a little credit. So good luck with that election bind. The fact that Trump got any positive press, this is probably, I can't even remember any time where he got any kind of praise. CNN praised him. So that was like, whoa. You know, I guess you could say they reluctantly praised the economy to some extent, but not really. But this was actually, actual praise for Trump's leadership. So good for him. Finally, he gets something. I actually felt bad for Trump. He's been the president almost 4 years, and he can't catch a break with these media jackholes. So finally they gave him some credit. Now I have to criticize him because one of the things Trump is proposing to do in the big stimulus package is to give everybody $1,000. I'm against UBI and I'm against this. Here's why. UBI, whether temporary or permanent, won't work for the same reasons. It won't work. And it really, who is that money for? What's that $1,000 going to go to? You all know what it's going to go to. It's going to go right to your bills. It's going to your mortgage and your bills. So who's really getting the money? The big companies that you owe money to are going to get that money. What really should happen is the opposite. Trump should say to these companies, hey, instead of pulling $1,000 out of our pockets, by the way, and then handing us back $1,000 to then pay our bills, they should say to these companies, hey, you can't shut off people's electricity or water or gas. You can't fault people for missing a mortgage payment. You have to give them extra time or forgive them a month or whatever. So you'd have to make March and probably April two gimme months, and just freeze everything and say, look, you just kind of have to say no. you have to give these people basically 2 free months. Now, it's not free in that you wouldn't eventually pay that money. It's just that you should be able to freeze time on your mortgage and then pick up in June and give people time to scramble and hopefully get back working. People are getting laid off already, and people in business will anticipate this recession. They'll just even if it's going to be a short recession, and it probably will. They're going to lay off their workers, say, hey, go on unemployment, and we'll see what happens in 3 to 6 months. And Trump's going to extend unemployment, so that's a gimme too. So you're probably going to see unemployment go from 3 months to 6 months, easy. And then hopefully by the end of that, things will start to go back to normal and people will start working again. I think you'll see that. I mean, you're coming off a pretty strong economy, and this is a hit, but it's not like September 11th. September 11th, although I don't even think the economic impact was that big. It was big on New York, obviously. But there were things that were actually destroyed. I mean, businesses and buildings and people, they were actually destroyed. Some people will pass away tragically in the virus, but businesses themselves, unless they were right on the bubble at the wrong possible time, I mean, they're not going to be destroyed. I mean, is 2 months later, you can pick up and start the business again. That's why I think it would make more sense just to say to all the banks, hey, freeze everything for 2 months and then let everybody pick up their payments in June. Just give people the two free months of like, okay, you don't have to pay us. Like March and April don't count, and then, and if someone paid March, then you say, well, April and May don't count for you, or whatever. Just give people a 2-month pass to get through this crisis, is what I would do. Now, some would argue that that's kind of like UBI. Not really. I think the UBI is just, the money's just going to evaporate. It's not even enough money. It's not even enough. I mean, for a guy like me, that's going to be a windfall. That's going to be a windfall for me. But I am very poor and live with a very low overhead. But for someone who's got a family, $1,000, that's not enough to get through the month. Unless you're really scraping by. I mean, it might be enough for most of your mortgage payment, maybe, if your mortgage is pretty low. But, taxes in New Jersey here. I mean, taxes, just on the property taxes here, it's ridiculously high. I mean, I think it's up like $700 a month here. Something like that. Yeah. It's high. Joan hates taxes. Joan, you don't pay those taxes. Just relax. Anyhow, I had to throw some shade at Trump for even considering this UBI nonsense or $1,000 giveaway or whatever. It's just a dumb move. It's not really going to help things. I don't think. At the end of the day, it'll shut people up. Because, well, hey, we got $1,000, and then when the math doesn't work out, it'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm still kind of struggling here. It's not going to be enough money. I think it would just be better to freeze everything and tell the banks just to freeze everything. I think the banks would lose money if you did that, but I mean, really, 2 months of income? Is that going to kill the banks? I kind of think it wouldn't. I kind of think they can just, and their debts could be suspended too for 2 months. I mean, you just do it to the entire system and just say, let's just freeze everything for 2 months, pretend that these 2 months don't exist for everybody, and then pick it up in June or May or whatever. That's what I would do. Handing people tax money is bad. Because all they're doing is printing it. I mean, you understand that, right? They're just printing the money and not even actually physically printing it. They're just going to a computer in the Federal Reserve and saying, oh yeah, add $1 trillion. And adding that $1 trillion to the debt and putting that money in the circulation actually devalues the money that's already in circulation. And that's what drives up prices. Because our money is not backed by anything. See, in the old days, you couldn't just create money. You had to have gold to back it because it was a gold standard, right? So the greenbacks backed gold. They were called greenbacks. And they had to have a certain amount of gold to back each dollar. And that's why the dollar was great currency for so long. It's still the currency choice of the world, but at this point, the Federal Reserve has probably printed so much and loaned out so much. And because they work partially in secret, we don't actually know how much money's out there. And now people are afraid to find out, with good reason. And their artificial control of the interest rates, it's also bad. Anyhow, I've sort of lapsed into my libertarian speech. But so I had to throw a little shade at Trump for the whole $1,000. I know it sounds good, but it's actually bad for you, and it's bad for the economy in the long run. In the short term, it'll be great. I mean, in the short term, everybody go, oh, $1,000. Thank you so much, President Trump. I'm totally voting for you. See, it's kind of like a bribe. But sadly, Trump seems to be a better Democrat than most of the Democrats these days. How weird is that?